Yo, PAK. I don't know who you think you are. I don't know who you think you are.
He's secure because he's not looking outward for things that can only be found inside.
Who you think you are?
A man who stands alone
I don't know who you think you
and
are.
is at peace with it, he knows the strength in solitude. See, when you're alone, when it's just you and your thoughts, there's no mask, no pretending, no need to put on a show for anyone.
Who you think you are?
You're stripped down to who you really are.
I don't know who you think you are.
And that's where the power is. A man who's secure in himself doesn't need people around to tell him who he is. He doesn't need constant validation, approval, or applause. He's not looking for someone else to give him permission to feel worthy.
I don't know who you think you are.
And because he's not caught up in trying to fit in or be like, he's got the freedom to truly be himself, to grow in his own way, to develop an unshakable confidence in who he is.
Yo, PAK.
Now, friendships can be a beautiful part of life, don't get me wrong. There's value in companionship and having someone to laugh with, to share moments with. But a secure man knows that his worth isn't determined by how many friends he has or how popular he is. He's not keeping score.
Know who you think you are.
He's got his eyes on the bigger picture, on a purpose that isn't swayed by social dynamics or the pressure to be a certain way just to keep people around.
Yo, PAK.
He's committed to his growth, his vision, and his principles. And if people come along who align with that, great.
Yo, PAK.
But he's not out there seeking approval or trying to collect people just to avoid being alone.
I don't know who you think you are.
He knows that a man's peace can't be measured by the number of people in his corner. Solitude is his teacher, his guide.
Yo, PAK.
When a man has the courage to sit with himself, he learns things about who he is that he wouldn't find in a crowd. He learns about his fears, his strengths, his weaknesses. And once he's looked those parts of himself in the face, nobody can shake him.
Yo, PAK.
He doesn't need anyone else to fill the gaps or mask the insecurities. He's worked through them on his own. He's faced them head
I don't know
on.
who you think you are.
And that's what gives him his strength. It's a strength that comes from within, not from the praise or presence of others.
Yo, PAK.
A secure man understands that the wrong friendships can actually weaken him. People with conflicting values, people who don't respect his boundaries, people who bring drama or unnecessary complications into his life, those are people who will drain him. And a wise man isn't about to let himself get caught up in that.
Yo, PAK.
He's selective because he respects his peace too much to throw it away on relationships that aren't good for him. And sometimes that means he ends up walking a quieter path, a more solitary path. But that solitude is rich, it's purposeful, it's peaceful. A man like that, he's not without empathy or connection. He knows how to connect deeply when he chooses to.
I don't know who you think
But he's
you are.
not so eager to share himself with just anyone. He values his time, his energy, his mind, and he's careful about who he shares those parts of himself with. When he does let someone in,
PAK.
it's because they've shown
Know who you think you are.
they respect who he is and what he stands for. He's not interested in superficial connections. He's looking for depth, for respect, for authenticity. And if that's not on the table, he's perfectly fine keeping to himself. See, society often tries to tell us that being alone is something to be fixed, something to avoid.
Yo, PAK.
But a secure man knows better. He knows that sometimes standing alone is exactly what a man needs to grow, to understand his worth, to build himself up from the inside out. And when a man truly knows his worth, he doesn't fear solitude. He doesn't need a crowd. He doesn't need to fit into some mold. He's confident in his own path,
Yo, PAK.
in his own skin, and that makes him
Know who
unshakable.
you think you are.
This man, he stands solid because he understands that true self-respect is about what he knows to be true when he's alone, not about the noise that comes from outside. He's looked himself in the eye in moments of silence, moments of challenge, moments of truth. He's come face to face with who he is, what he's done, and where he's
Yo,
going.
PAK.
And because he's been through that kind of self-reflection, that kind of personal accountability, he's earned a respect for himself that doesn't rely on the opinions of others. It's an unshakable confidence, one that's built from the inside out, not from the fleeting approval that comes from those around him. This is a man who's walked through fire, who's been tested in ways that few will ever understand. He's had to confront his weaknesses, his regrets, his insecurities, and he's come out on the other side stronger, wiser, and more self-assured. There's no need for applause. Because he knows the work he's done, he doesn't need it validated by anyone else. He's not looking for praise. He's not out here trying to collect admirers or followers. He's moved past that phase in life where external validation feels like a necessity. He's come to a place of peace that only he can define, and that's what makes him secure. And in today's world, that's a radical thing. Society would have you believe that your worth is tied to how many people know your name, how many people like your photos, how many people are tuned in to what you're doing. But this man has separated himself from that. He's not defined by his social circle, by how many people think he's successful, or by how many people are interested in his life. His value, his sense of self-worth, is rooted in what he knows he's accomplished, in the strength of his character,
I don't know who you think you are.
and in the path he's chosen to walk. He understands that popularity doesn't equate to fulfillment. He's secure enough to know that real value isn't something that fluctuates based on the opinions of others. It's something you carry with you quietly with a steady heart. He's content in the quiet spaces of his life, those moments when it's just him, the silence in his thoughts. He's not uncomfortable with his own company because he's made peace with who he is. He's worked to resolve his inner conflicts, he's faced his past, he's acknowledged his mistakes, and he's learned from them. So when he's alone, he's not haunted by regrets or unfinished business. He's at ease because he knows he's done the best he could with the hand he's been dealt. That kind of peace, that kind of contentment doesn't come from a life filled with people. It comes from a life filled with purpose, with integrity, with a commitment to self-growth that transcends the need for outside approval. People on the outside might not understand this. They see a man without a big social circle, without a crowd around him, and they assume he must be lonely, that he must be missing something. But that kind of thinking says more about them than it does about him. It reveals a mindset that places value on appearance over substance, on perception over truth. A secure man doesn't live his life for others to understand. He's not performing for an audience. His life, his choices, his journey, those are his alone. And he's content to walk his path without the need for others to validate it. He's not avoiding people. He's just not dependent on them to define his worth. He knows that true strength is quiet. It doesn't need to be on display. It doesn't need a platform. It doesn't need to be noticed. Real strength is like a mountain firm, unwavering, rooted deeply in the earth. It's not moved by the wind. It's not shaken by storms. It's steady because it's grounded in something real, something internal. This man has found his strength within, and because of that, he doesn't need to make a show of it. He's not broadcasting his achievements. He's not out here trying to impress. He's simply living in alignment with his values, and that's all the validation he needs. People may see him alone and assume he's lacking. But solitude isn't emptiness for a man like this, it's richness. Solitude allows him the space to think clearly, to hear his own voice, to connect with his own spirit. In a world full of noise, solitude becomes a sanctuary, a place where he can center himself and stay true to who he is. This man has learned that his life doesn't need to be validated by likes, by followers, by applause. He's grown wise enough to know that those things are temporary, that they come and go, and that they have no bearing on the kind of man he is or the impact he has.
Yo, PAK.
He's secure in the knowledge that his value is determined not by how many people notice him, but by the quality of the life he's living. He's focused on his purpose, on his goals, on the legacy he's building. And he knows that real success, real fulfillment isn't measured in numbers or recognition. It's measured in the depth of his character, in the strength of his convictions, and in the way he carries himself through life.
Yo, PAK.
It takes courage to live this way, to stand apart,
I don't know who you think you are.
to be comfortable in your own skin without needing others to validate it.
I don't know who you think you are.
This man has that courage. He's not afraid of solitude because he knows that it's in those moments of quiet that he finds his true power. He doesn't need to fill his life with people just to feel whole. He's already whole.
Yo, PAK.
He's not out here searching for approval because he's already approved of himself. And that's a rare kind of security, a rare kind of strength. And it's something that not everyone will understand.
Yo, PAK. I don't know who you think you are. I don't know who you think you are.